Hey everybody, Cole here with Classic Mini DIY, and today we are going to be finishing off these carbs. We're going to be making sure that they are centered, put back together, and then we're going to put them back on the car. I'm hoping in this episode we can also maybe tackle using a new Easy Bleed system. It is made by Gunson. This was recommended to me by Paul Jeffries as well as quite a few of my other viewers. I'm pretty eager to show this to you guys. We'll see if we get to that to this episode. But as usual, before we get started, I have a few things I want to talk to you guys about. One, we have a giveaway going on right now for Venom Steel gloves. I mentioned that in my last episode. That's going on until the end of this month, so it's getting kind of close. So if you are interested in winning a box of 500 Venom Steel nitrile gloves, head over to the link in the description. The second thing, and this has been asked to me by a few of my viewers, and if you've been following this build, you might remember that I had two contests going on, one for a t-shirt design and one for an intro design on my channel here for Bad Wolf Mini. And these have been going on. I haven't given you guys an update on these in a little while. And the reason I haven't done that is because one, the intro design one, I've only gotten one submission so far. So I was hoping that I would have a few to kind of share with you guys, but if you guys are interested in entering into that contest, I'm gonna run these until the end of the month as well, August 31st. I know they've been running for a little while already, but I just want to refresh these in your mind. If you're interested in putting an intro on, then it being featured on this channel, head over to the first link in the description. The second one is a t-shirt design contest, and I've had quite a few submissions for this. And since I'm running those other giveaways until the end of the month, I am going to go ahead and run this contest until the end of the month as well. So everything is going to end on August 31st. And the prizes for the winners, which will be selected by you guys, the winners of those two contests, the t-shirt design contest and the intro design contest, each winner will win a $75 gift card to 7 Mini Parts. Or if you're not in North America, I will buy you an equivalent value gift card to a mini part supplier of your choice if you are outside the United States or outside North America. But that's all the announcements I have for today. Let's get back into this carburetor and let's see if we can get that jet centered now that we have our new AH2 needles. All right, now to start off, before we actually get into anything else, and keep in mind, one thing one of my viewers said on the last episode was that it was too hard to see some of these smaller parts, so I've adjusted the camera. Hopefully this is a little bit better for you guys. But one thing that I was told in my last episode is that these little fuel regulator thingy-mabobbers, there is a better version, which is what was on the car already. This here has a small little ball valve on the end of that. The one that's inside the float bowl right now has a little like piston thingy in there. And apparently this ball valve is widely regarded as the more efficient version because what happens is you always get a clean surface for that valve to get pressed onto. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but based on what I'm reading online, and you guys know I like reading things online and learning about this, that is kind of the general consensus there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the one that's in here as well as the one that's in my other float bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and replace these. So this will just take me a second. Should be pretty easy. Just let's see here. We'll probably use some magic for this. 1, 2, 3. And there we have it, magic completed. As you can see, I've got the little ball valve in here now, and now we can set this off to the side and we can move on to actually centering the jets. I've also already done this on my other float bowl as well. All right, so as I mentioned before, I was actually replacing the needles in my carburetors, and the reason I'm replacing them, there's actually two reasons. One, I'm a dumbass and I actually bent my needles. You can actually probably see this one. When I spin it, it kind of, well, maybe not, that's kind of hard to see. But the other reason I'm replacing them is because I'm looking for something that's a little bit richer, that's going to deliver more fuel with the air mixture so that I potentially could get a little bit more power out of my bigger displacement and my fast hot cam that I have on there. So hopefully that will yield some benefits here. But you can see here, there's two different needles, and let's see if I can get those lined up. There we go. So the base of the needles are at the same place, but you can see the new needle on your left, the shinier one. It's a little bit shorter, and it's also a little bit fatter. And the idea here is that the fuel, since this is fatter, it's actually going to deliver more fuel faster, and as it tapers off down towards the bottom here, it's actually going to allow more fuel in overall, and it's going to be more consistent. So this needle right here is, let's see if it actually has the signifier on it. Doesn't look like it, at least it does, it used to, but it doesn't show it very well. This is a stock needle right here. This is the original HS2 needle. I'm going to be superimposing the name of that on the screen now, so if you're looking for a stock replacement, you can get these at 7 Mini Parts. This one right here is an AH2. It's a little bit richer needle. It's fixed, which means there's no spring action on it, and this one is for the HS2s, and it makes it a little bit richer, like I've said. So the next thing that we're going to do is take the needle off of the float bowl that I still haven't serviced yet. That needle over there is the old one, so we have our float bowl out of the carburetor now, and the needle is held in by a little set screw right here on the inside. Let's see if I can show you that there. You can see that comes out, and with that out, come on, this needle should come out. It's a little tight in there because, there we go. So we got our needle out, and now the next step is to put our new needle in. So, got our new needle here, and the idea here is that this needle needs to sit flush with the bridge here, so there's no step down coming down after the needle. So that is flush. So if we hold this up on its side, you can see it's flush along the bottom of that float bowl. Keep in mind, I'm not a carburetor expert here, so there is a chance that this is not the right way to do it. And if you are a carburetor expert and you know a lot about carburetors, you see me doing something wrong, please correct me in the comment section below, and I will pin your comment to the YouTube channel here so that people can see it and make sure that they're not doing anything wrong as well. Now we're going to look at this, verify that it is flush, and in this case it is. So now we can actually get to the job of centering our jet. And let me bring the other carburetor over here. We'll set that off so we don't bend that again. And here is the other carburetor. Now on the inside of this carb, you have your jet as well as the bridge. Now the jet is the piece in the middle that actually can move up and down. So you can see that moving in and out there when you adjust your choke. And then the bridge is the metal piece that surrounds it. Now, in order to center this jet, you are going to need to loosen the lock nut on the bottom of your carburetor here. That's the top nut. You are also going to want your jet adjustment screw up all the way. So bridge adjustment nut, jet adjustment nut. Pretty straightforward, but you want this up all the way so that it sits flush with the top of your bridge here. That way, when you set your float bowl down in there, it's actually going to actuate the way it needs to. So next up, we're going to go ahead and loosen this bolt. I'm going to loosen this up a little bit, and this is going to allow the jet and the bridge to kind of move around inside here. So by loosening that, basically what it's allowing us to do is to move the jet around a little bit so that we can get that centered. And the concept is so that this needle can go up and down inside here without any sort of binding. So I'm going to go ahead and set that down in there. And the way you get it centered is you go ahead and press this down so that it presses down with kind of like a click, sort of audible click. You should be able to feel it though. It'll kind of step down. And then once it's stepped down there, generally what I like to do at this point is take the float bowl and or the actual dash pot and put it back over the top here. So that means Mr. Spring goes on, and then we take our dash pot, line up that spring with the little post thing in there, and we'll let this back down. Now, the reason I like to do this is because this is the closest it is to like actual operational like status. So go ahead, tighten these back down. All right, and so at this point, this should move pretty freely because it hasn't been locked into place yet. Now, gonna just kind of give that a nice wiggle. And once this is on top, you're gonna need something to actually press down the float inside here to make it do that click again. So what I like to use here is something that's not gonna damage it, but is going to provide us the actuation that we need. So there we go, that's down. And with that down and in place, we're gonna wanna lock the screw in. So at this point now, there should be no binding on your piston. As you can see, mine's moving freely here, and my nut is in fact all the way tight, so that's great. Now we're gonna add oil back to this right here, and the oil that you use is being listed on the screen right now. And I use this little like oil dripper because I think it's really cool and it works really well. And then we're gonna return the plunger to the actual carburetor here. And that just slides right down in there. And let's actuate this a little bit more. That's feeling really good. So this can move up and down now, no problems. Just like that. And the last thing that we're gonna do is put the floats back in there, and then the carburetors are kind of ready to roll at this point. All right, so the last thing that we're gonna do here is set our initial setting on these carburetors here. Now I'm sure you see I have a Sharpie here with me, and the reason I have a Sharpie here is because it helps me figure out how many turns I've made on this adjustment nut down here. Now, from the tightest setting, what we are gonna wanna do is turn it 2 full turns. So that means this little black thing here is gonna come around once, and then twice. And that's gonna get us close enough to the right setting to start the car and run it without it being too rich or too lean. And then we can kind of fine tune it from there. I'm not gonna do that in this episode, but I will a little bit later, don't worry. But for right now, I'm gonna let that Sharpie dry. I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side and then turn this down 2 full turns. All right, so now at this point, the next thing that we're gonna do is really just start reassembling everything. The nice thing about this kit that 7 Mini Parts sells is that it comes with a fresh set of new gaskets for everything up here. And so, even though my gaskets are relatively new, I might as well just go ahead and replace all of these gaskets because I have new ones. So, I'm gonna start tossing all of these new gaskets on there. Now, because I did take this off of the running car, I didn't disconnect my throttle cable here because it was already pre-adjusted for the length that it needed to be. So really, all I did was take the cotter pin out. So what we're gonna do is place this back on here, and then we're gonna put the cotter pin on. But I don't like how loose that is in comparison to that hole right there. I know this is really hard for you guys to see, but basically I'm gonna add some washers on here to kind of even this out, space it out, and make sure it works properly. Nice and tight on there, and there we have it, our new throttle linkage. So that is in good shape, and the next step is our choke linkage, which you can't actually attach to the choke ahead of time. So let's set this off over here so you guys can see. And now if you guys have ever worked with dual carburetors, you know this is actually the hardest part because you got to get all the linkages to kind of line up with each other, which can be kind of a pain in the butt, as well as this setting down into its correct placement. All right, so there we have it. Those are tightened up. The last thing that we're gonna do is reinstall our fuel line, and then we could probably clean our filter. Although those are not gonna go on just yet, not until we actually get the mixture right on these, because when you put the filters on, it's just kind of hard to reach back down there and adjust the mixture. So, fuel line, let's get that on. All right, so the last thing I'm going to show you guys in this episode is how to clean these filters. I wanted to do the brake bleeder, but I think I'm going to hold off on that for right now, at least until I can dedicate an episode to that. So first, we were going to need some running water, and then K&N sells a filter cleaner. It's literally made specifically for these filters to clean them, and what you are going to want to do is really, really liberally apply this cleaner to these filters here. Now it's important that you don't let this stuff dry on here because it is not really made to dry on these filters. It's made to loosen up that dirt, get this stuff loose and ready to get pushed out with that water. Now you're gonna wanna let this sit for about 10 minutes and until it's had a second to really soak in there. Keep in mind, don't let it dry on here. It's not meant to dry on the filters. Okay, so now that it's been 10 minutes, the next step is to rinse from the clean side out. So that means the inside out. And we're just gonna go ahead and push low pressure water through this filter to really push out all that dirt and grime. Keep in mind that this is always sucking inwards. So by pressing this water outwards and out of this filter, you're actually pushing out a lot of the debris and gunk that gets stuck in these filters. And look at that, that is quite an improvement. That is great. Now all we're gonna wanna do is let these dry out like normal. So I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this one as well. Look at that, that is such an improvement. Looking really good. So I'm gonna set these off to dry. I'm just gonna give them overnight, honestly, let them really dry out, and then they're gonna get re-oiled. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of Classic Mini DIY and Operation Bad Wolf. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it educational. I was obviously going to try and bleed the brakes on this episode, but it's starting to get dark right now and I really want to dedicate some time to that. So that'll probably be its own episode. Really, I've done stuff on bleeding the brakes before, but I really want to dedicate like a whole episode to using this Easy Bleed system because I think this is going to be a great solution for like the do-it-yourselfer and maybe the person who doesn't have an extra set of hands who can necessarily work on the car with them at any given time. So I'm going to dedicate an episode to that. Obviously, I wanted to make this episode about the shifter. Also, need a little bit more time, so this is probably going to come this weekend, hopefully, assuming that I don't have any decks that I have to resurface or put railings onto, so we'll see about that. House projects sometimes take precedence over the old Mini here. But don't forget, I have an intro design contest, the Venom Steel giveaway, and a t-shirt design contest all going on right now and are all going to be done on August 31st. So get your submissions in, get your contest entries in. All the links to those are in the description below, as well as the products that I used in this episode. There's some really good ones in this episode if you guys have to rebuild your carburetors. But that's it for Classic Mini DIY today. Until next time, enjoy those minis and motor on.